everyone, and welcome to the newest episode of the Sexy Mystics. I am Jess,
And I'm Jen.
and today we are talking about some really exciting, fun, funny, hilarious things. But the core topic of it is going to be about owning our creation and taking responsibility for our shit. So let's get started. Jen and I have had some really interesting situations happen recently surrounding the importance of honesty, of open communication, direct communication, of not reacting immediately or communicating immediately with a reactive state. So we've got lots of fun things to talk about today that I have actually seen. We've both seen the beauty of course correcting and owning everything that comes up for us. So Jen, take it away.
Yeah, taking like full responsibility too for our actions and for the things that are showing up for us. So sometimes we feel like things are out of our control and they're not. We're actually creating stuff. Our soul is creating, it's remembering, it's all the time doing things so that we have a lesson to learn in something. And so it's been, like Jess said, it's been a really beautiful thing for both of us. We've seen it come up for us over the last like a couple of weeks. And it's been remarkable to see us how we could have been reactive and we could have been mad and we could have been in this space. And yet we chose to like stay with it and go, how can I see this differently? How can I grow from this? And this is a mantra that I've been saying for a long time to the universe. How can I see this differently and how can I grow from this? And so the universe has been showing me and showing up for me in different ways. And the thing about it is that when you begin to ask that question, then, or not even question, say the mantra, then things will show up for you. And what happens is we're first triggered to go back down our patterns in our stuff. And then we, if you're aware, then you stop and go, oh, wait, this is the universe showing me this differently. So I've had some situations come up in my life in the last few weeks that are a repeat of what had happened previous in like years before. And I didn't learn the lesson. I didn't know, I didn't have the emotional intelligence to like work my way through it. So there was a lot of reactive. And then all of a sudden it comes back up again. And it's like, okay, I'm willing to see this differently. I'm willing to grow from this. And it's been really a great journey of growth for me, especially the last few days.
Yeah, it has been for Jen, and I'm so proud of her because she got triggered and I was with her in that state. And then at the end of the day, she had shifted so much. And I was so proud of her. And I was like, you know what, this is exactly what we should talk about today because this is something that everybody can benefit from. So we all get triggered, right? We've talked about this on a few other episodes before, maybe every episode, because it is important. And this is so important with higher consciousness in living, of being able to have compassion, both for ourselves and for the other people involved, being able to see things from other points of view. And so when we get triggered, there's a couple of things that happen, right? We can be reactive or we can be passive. And sometimes we'll suppress. And I'm really good at that sometimes. So a lot of times I'm pretty even keeled, I think. Some people who've seen other sides of me might have a different opinion about it, but generally when I'm with people, especially that I don't know, I will tend to suppress how I'm feeling in something. If I'm triggered, if I'm angry, if I'm ticked off, if I'm frustrated, whatever, I tend to try to bottle it up inside, and my face might say something else, but internally I'm holding it in, and that's not healthy. Suppression is not healthy, you guys, at all. You've seen those people that are like these volcanoes, are just waiting to erupt because there's so many emotions that they have not processed throughout their entire life. And so I've been working really, really hard on expressing that. And this weekend I was out in the field and I was meditating, and this anger came over me about this guy that's in the peripheral of my life, and I was so mad at him. I felt like I could kill him. I was so angry, but I let myself have that, and I hadn't acknowledged it before, my frustration and how he hadn't shown up and blah blah blah, all these different stories in my head, but allowing that energy to come up, and my body was shaking. I was seeing red. I could feel the heat going through my body, but it was so helpful because it cleared so much of it out to let that anger out. And side note, something that's really, really powerful that my Rolfer Roosvelt has shared with me is either go into a pool or get a pot of water and fill up the pot so that you can submerge your face in it and scream into the water. No one can hear you. you're not going to choke. I did it, so I didn't choke on water or anything like that. But it was really amazing because I could feel the vibration. And as I was screaming, just more and more came up. And that's just energy, you guys. Emotions are just energy. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It's nothing to be scared of. It's nothing to hide. It's so important to let it go. And I've learned that a lot this year about the importance of letting go of the emotions and understanding this just energy, just like joy and happiness is energy. So is sorrow and grief and anger and rage and all of that. But it's important to own those feelings, right? To own how you feel about something and not put it on somebody else, not make it their responsibility. How I react, how I respond, that is my responsibility. And it is not the person that said it. They trigger something in me, and that is a reflection for me to understand that I have something to heal and to let go.
Gosh, there's so much to that, what you just said. Like, I could go on and on about that. So first thing I want to say about it is when you hang on to emotion, that is what causes dis-ease in your body. And dis-ease, when you break it down, is dis-ease. And so a lot of times, like people that have cancer, that's what the issue is. It's like unresolved stuff inside that is trying to come out and express. But because we are not allowing it to come out and express, then it's being bottled up. And so it begins to tumor. And then whenever it begins to tumor, then it starts to spread. And that's usually what it is. Usually disease is has a spiritual connection of something that needs to be healed within. And so anyway, and some people can heal their disease through diet, nutrition, and stuff like that, because, sometimes it's connected to that. But for the most part, disease is directly related to that. Another thing that I want to say about what you were just talking about is the suppression of emotion and being able to express it. So like, I used to get really, really mad, and I didn't have the emotional intelligence to express it. So I would get triggered, and I wasn't at that time asking the question or saying the mantra, I'm willing to see this differently. So what was happening was I would get triggered, and then I would be in my shit, and it would just be coming up over and over and over again. And I had a similar experience to you, Jess, a few years ago. Actually, I was working with Dr. Phil, and it's funny because Dr. Phil just texted me literally a second ago. But I was working through this anger over this guy, and this guy had no idea he had angered me, but it had triggered some insecurity and inner child stuff. We can talk about inner child stuff here in a second, because that's really what is driving us emotionally, is our inner child, that little 4-year-old that got scared and never got healed. And we have never taken that inner child and put him in, like, this been driving, and we've never put it into the passenger seat and said, okay, you're going to be okay now, and you don't need to drive anymore my life. And so anyway, my inner child was triggered by this person. And so I went to Dr. Phil, and he's an energy worker that Jess and I have both seen in St. Louis. And he worked this energy out, and it was like a 2.5-hour session with him. And I felt like I had been beat up after this session. I mean, I was just sore all over because this energy was just rising up. And like he would work through, and then more would come up, and he would work through, and more would come up. And it was just such a therapeutic thing to work through the emotion, whether it's like writing, if you're going to write, or if you're going to do the energy work, if you have an energy healer that's either there for you, like physically, or through, telephone or Skype or whatever. Energy is energy. They don't have to be right there with you. So anyway, working through that and really like doing the things like Jess had suggested, screaming into the water, that is really going to help you start to heal that stuff on the inside so that it doesn't bubble up anymore to the degree that it can or did in the past. And I know, like, for me, like what she was talking about yesterday, I got triggered about something, and thankfully Jess was there, and she held space for me to be able to express and get that out. And then I sat in it, and what I realized and I communicated not from anger, I communicated from love to the person that had triggered me. But what I realized, though, was that I had created this whole scenario around, because my soul was like, you need to heal this area in your life. So whatever happens with this is whatever happens. It doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that I recognized that I needed healing, and I sat in it and allowed it to, first of all, bubble up and come through and express. And I didn't express it to the person that that had triggered me. I expressed it to Jess. And she talked me through it. And then by the end of the day, it was like, okay, I'm in a good space. And I, had shifted so much energy that day. And I'd really seen how I had created every scenario that had happened, and how I could now take responsibility for the creation of that scenario. And by taking responsibility, I can move through and actually get to where it is that I want to go, whether it's with that person or someone else. And I think that that's really what the thing is like, we have this idea of exactly what we want, and we see it, and yet it might not be that. And so we have to be open and aware and free, and let it go, and not have an attachment to an outcome or a thing or a person or whatever, so that we can move through this. So anyway.
It's so important. I'm so proud of Jen. And I mentioned that to her because, again, the state she was in, she was so angry, and she'd worked so hard on her triggers, and she was in such a good space. And she's like, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. Like, what? Like, I don't understand. And it was just that last push, that last thing, because Jen was holding out so strong and doing so great. And then the last thing, but because of Jen's work, she was able to shift very quickly. So I know in the past, I'm sure she would have stayed in this anger state that she was in for days.
And it would have acted from that place, which would have made it worse.
Yeah, she would have reacted from that place and would have made it a lot worse. So one of the key things that that we're trying to we're discovering for ourselves, and certainly want to help and share with you, that when you ask, like, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to me? That is a victim statement. That is a victim state of mind, mentality, and that is a victim statement to say, why is this happening to me? Why are these things happening to me? I don't understand. I don't get it. That's a very victim state, and it's going to keep you in that smallness. But when you say, like, this is something to the Roosvelt, the Rolfer says, he says, rather than why is this happening to me, what is this happening for me? What is it? What is the purpose of this? What is the benefit? What is the lesson? What is the gift? What is the what is it that I need to heal in here? And from that standpoint, you become curious, you become an observer, you're able to step back, and now you're not in it, you're on the outside looking in. And it actually gives you a lot of your power back, because from that place of curiosity and observation, then you can decide, how are you going to move forward? How are you going to respond? How are you going to act? And you guys, I mean, this is so tough, because if Jen had been in the moment with that person, it would have been really hard for her to handle it in the way that she ended up doing it. So luckily she had space to process, and she had space to get to the point of where she wanted to be. But it was truly something so spectacular to watch, from being, rather than being from a reactive state and communicating in that. And she's done that before. But when she moved through the reactive state to a loving state, and then the communication she sent was so beautiful, I was really touched by it. And it was a really important lesson for me to see, because again, when I was this weekend and I was like, I am so angry, like I wanted to call this guy up and like ream him. And he, like, even energetically, like I called in Kali, like the goddess of war in India, Hindu or whatever, and like I was just like attacking him, and he had his hands up like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, you don't know, like, how dare you? So it was like a really funny, angry, important lesson. But thank God I didn't call him, and I made through it, and moved through the energy and allow that to happen. So same thing for Jen. She had the energy, she moved through it, and then she sent this really beautiful communication. And then I think it's really important, Jen, that you share what happened next.
Yeah, I want to also address a few things, because here's the thing in relationships with other people, is that they don't realize that they're triggering you or angering you. They're really not doing it on purpose. So you're like thinking, he's doing this on purpose, I hate him, like I'm gonna like cut his dick off and send it to him. It's like not pissing you off on purpose, I promise. So anyway, it's so funny, because we get in our heads about it, and we're like, oh my gosh, this mother effer, I'm gonna kill him. And it's like he doesn't even realize at all that this is even going on, you know? And so it's funny because a few years ago, this poor guy, like he got it from me, and I was in a different state and I didn't have the emotional intelligence to deal with it at all. And I didn't have any understanding, and I didn't have the tools. I didn't have anything. Like I've since developed the tools and the resources to deal. And so it's just funny because this person came back up in my life after like a couple of years of not having any contact, and like all of a sudden he's back and I'm like, what the hell is this, you know? And it's like the lessons that it's kind of like he's like the only person that could bring stuff up like this. Like there are only certain few people that can trigger you, and this guy happens to be one that can bring this stuff up. And so when we talk about like the inner child and the little girl, you know, the wounded little girl, that like my whole wounding was I wasn't wanted. Like nobody wanted me. Nobody wanted to pick me. I was always last picked for PE, you know, like nobody wanted me to play with them. This was like my inner child wounding. And so anyway, it was like, it came up for me again. I'm 43 years old and it's like, I didn't get picked. And I'm like, what in the world is this? I created this because my soul and my little girl needed to heal this and say, you're okay. That's okay. It's not that big of a deal. It's not a direct to you. And move on. Like get out of the driver's seat, sit over here in the passenger seat and just be. So yeah, yesterday after I had my trigger and I went through my stuff, and I communicated with him with a very loving text. And, you know, I just kind of expressed myself. I said what I felt like saying, but it wasn't from a space of like condemnation or you're da-da-da. It was me going, these are my feelings that are coming up, and how do you receive them? And so he sent me a text back, and it was just a really nice text explaining like, this is how I feel. This is where I'm at. And okay. And I was like, wow. I mean, it was just really confirming to me to step into that place of not condemning and not, you know, like pointing fingers or being angry, but just really honoring both people in the scenario. Because here's the thing, you guys, is that I'm raised one way with belief systems from religion and parents and family and all of that stuff. And then the other person in your life is raised with their family and religion and belief systems and all of that. So they saw their thing in their home. I saw my thing in my home. Everybody is going to come to the table differently. And so honoring and respecting someone for the way that they come to the table is the most important thing, because you don't know their past. You don't know how they understand and have interpreted life. And so doing that, coming to the table with curiosity, I think is the most powerful thing, because when we come with anger and condemnation and shame and guilt and judgment, for the most part, then we're not coming to the table open and free and curious. And the open, free, and curious is what creates a lasting relationship and connection that is really magical and powerful.
So powerful. And I want to go back to what Jen said about how we take things personally. And it reminded me of Don Miguel Ruiz. The 4 agreements. So I'm going to read them. I'm sure some of you may be familiar with them. Some of you may not. You can Google them, but this is what they are, and I love them. 1 is to be impeccable with your word, which means speak with integrity, say only what you mean, avoid using the word to speak against yourself or to gossip about others, and to use the power of your word in the direction of truth and love. That's the first agreement. The second agreement is don't take anything personally. Nothing others do is because of you. What others say and do is a projection of their own reality, their own. When you are immune to the options and actions of others, you won't be the victim of needless suffering. 3, don't make assumptions. Find the courage to ask questions and to express what you really want. This is like so key. That's what I need. That's what I'm working on. What I'm developing. Communicate with others as clearly as you can to avoid misunderstandings, sadness, and drama. I could speak for an hour just about that one thing.
Episode for each agreement.
I love it. Yeah, let's do that. Okay. Thanks, guys. Thank you for our inspiration. So we're going to do episodes about this. 3, with just this one agreement, you can completely transform your life. And I absolutely 100% believe that. And then the 4th agreement is always do your best. Your best is going to change from moment to moment. It will be different when you are healthy as opposed to sick. Under any circumstance, simply do your best and you'll avoid self-judgment, self-abuse, and regret. So I had that on the fridge with my partner in my last relationship, and we looked at it sometimes, but it was good and it was a great reminder. So absolutely, Jen, that's a great idea. So suppressing, how dangerous that is, right? How unhealthy that is. Finding healthy ways to get it out, like Jen said, either writing, calling a girlfriend, holding space. That's so great. And one of the really great things that I learned from, oh gosh, what's her name? She wrote a book called Warrior Goddess in Training. She's phenomenal. Her name will come to me. But she talks about, like, when you're talking to a girlfriend, if you need support, you can just, like, ahead of time, you can say support, and they'll be like, okay, like they're ready to provide something. Or if it's like listening ear or a sounding board, they know that all they have to do is just listen, that they don't have to provide anything. And that's been something that's really cool too, is that, when Jen calls me, it's like, okay, do I sit and just listen and create a space for her where she feels safe to express herself? Does she want me to provide feedback? Does she want support? Because some of us don't want to hear anything. We just want to get it out, do it, and then be like, okay, good. I was able to process verbally, and now I can move on. So the importance of expressing yourself, but also the importance of expressing yourself, like Jen said, when she had moved through her emotions and she got to a place back to love, and then being able to communicate and express from a loving standpoint. I mean, it was so cool for me to, like, see her exchange and then for his response. And you could tell the work that he's done too. But if Jen had responded from her reactive state of anger, there is absolutely no way that he could have responded to her in the way that he did. He would have either not responded. He would have been like, he would have made some kind of judgment back, most likely. He may have cut her off completely with communication. Like, you just don't know what he would have done. But the fact that Jen showed up the way she did, and from such a loving and honest place, he was able to do the same in kind. And that was so huge. So that, for me, it was like a really big lesson for me of what's possible. So that's why I really, really wanted us to talk about it today, while it's still fresh and everything, and for Jen to have done this, because this is such a reflection, you guys, of what's possible in the work that you do. And Jen has such a clear contrast. She saw how she responded 3 years ago to him, and then she was able to see how she responded this time. Different situation, different circumstance, but communication wise, from 2 different states. And then the replies, the response, because before, I don't think you even gave him a chance to respond, right, Jen? Like,
no, it was so, like, mean that he didn't respond, because it was from a reactive state. And it was like, I'm surprised he even talks to me to this day, because it was like a very mean email that I sent 3 years ago. But it was from a reactive state and a place that I didn't have the emotional intelligence to deal with it. And so anyway, I had so much anger in me at that time that I wanted to just push away anything like that, like someone that could be close to me, someone that could hurt me, a man. I just wanted to push it away as hard and as fast as I could. And that was the only way I knew to do it, was to react, get mad, and send an email like that to push him away. So anyway, I wanted to also address something about what you said. It slipped my mind, actually, and I wanted to talk about it. Oh, I know what it was. So here's the thing, ladies, if you're a lady watching this, men are different than you. Like, their brains work completely differently. And so first of all, you have to give them time and space to respond. So if they don't respond in the next 30 minutes, don't get pissed off. Like, give them time and space to respond. If you reached out lovingly, and if they have a conscience, they will reach back out. If you did not reach out lovingly, then they aren't going to reach back out if they don't have to. If you're in a relationship with somebody, then you have to give them, even if you're talking casually, you have to give them the space to respond. So like Alison Armstrong talks about this. It's like men need, when they come home from work, they need time and space to just be for a minute. Like give them 30 minutes, give them 45 minutes, whatever they need before you're drilling them with questions, before you're like, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Why didn't you take the kids to this? Why didn't you take the trash out? Blah, blah, blah. Whatever it is that's bothering you, you do not go at him as soon as he gets home, no matter what. Like contain yourself. Go like talk to a girlfriend, get it out, and then like give him the space to come home and like decompress. Because men's brains are in compartments. Our brains are like all over the place. So whenever you're communicating with them, that's how you have to communicate. And so I had to give this person the space in order to be able to respond. And, you know, if I would have gotten mad because he didn't respond in 30 minutes, then that would have been stupid. You know, it's like he needed the time to like process what I said and be able to form. Because here's the thing, feelings and emotions back here for guys, and their communications here. So it's got to travel from feeling and emotion all the way to the front part of their brain, and then be able to communicate out from their mouth. And so it's, I mean, it's just the difference in the way that our brains are structured. And that's why we are so different. And so the thing about, I think, men and women is that women dishonor men when they are trying to nag or complain or get them to do something or manipulate or whatever. And so it's our responsibility as women, because we have a more communication skill as far as like our emotion and all of this stuff is all right up here. So we're able to respond very, very quickly. And so anyway, giving them the space, that is the most important thing that you can do. Instead of reacting, just chill out for a second. So I wanted to mention that too, because that was really an important key component, is that I didn't get all like, my energy didn't get all upset because I didn't hear from him right away.
So true. And it's so important. And you're absolutely right. And of course, you know, when we're in that state, oh man, girl, I remember that there was this guy that stood me up for a date and he ghosted, and I didn't hear from him for like 3 days. And it took everything. This was, you know, 3 years ago. But I read Alison Armstrong's book called The Queen's Code, and I totally recommend women reading it for sure. It was awesome. But that book saved my sanity to like just stay in it and keep reading it and like, all right, there's a good reason. I know that there's a good reason for this. It doesn't make sense to me, but in his mind, there is a perfectly logical explanation for why he ghosted and then why he has not responded. And I gave him space. I didn't chase him. I left it alone. And then sure enough, 2 days later, he came back and he had a reason and an explanation. He was scared. He freaked out, you know, da, da, da. So it was really interesting because I could have cut him off and, you know, but I gave him the space, and then he was able to show up and provide something for me that maybe I might not have said, like, that's ridiculous, you know, that doesn't make sense. That's not a good reason, but that's me, you know, taking it personally. Right. So I definitely recommend reading The Queen's Code. She's awesome. But there was something that I wanted to share, and this is really important. This is probably one of the most important things I've learned in my life from a forum that I went to. And it was, if you draw 2 circles and in one circle you put in what happened, you know, this guy didn't call me or whatever, and then what you made it mean. What I made it mean was that he doesn't give a shit about me, that he is a womanizer, that he's a da-da-da-da, you know, whatever it is. Take any situation, anything that happens. And one of my best friends, she and I, we go back to this all the time. If we're reacting to something, we'll say, what'd you make it mean, Jess? What'd you make it mean, Care? And it's like, oh, okay, I made it mean blah, 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 blah. Because really, it's just what happened. It's literally like you take the facts, pull out the emotion, state the facts. This is what happened. And then you get to see what you made it mean. And it's pretty powerful. So that's a really, really powerful lesson that I totally recommend anybody taking on, especially if you're getting really triggered, to like take it out and be like, okay, this happened. This is what I made it mean.
That's an amazing exercise to do, because we do make stuff mean things that they don't even mean even close to what they really mean, you know? Especially if you're dealing in interpersonal relationships with a man, you know, somebody of the opposite sex, because our brain is so different. he is like doing things and expressing things and being a certain way. And we're making a meaning because we think, like Alison Armstrong says, we think that men are just hairier versions of us. And they're not. They're not hairier versions of us. They're completely different. And so like the thing about this feminine rising that I see is that so many women are dishonoring men because they're being men. And then they're like, you know, like women are raising pussies for men. Like, no, the reason why women are having a hard time finding men is because they're being masculine, because they're being in that masculine space and not being free flowing, feminine, loving, and honoring the man for who they are and what they bring to the table. They bring safety, security, honor, trust, integrity. That's what they bring to the table. If they're not bringing that to the table, that means that they are not healthy. So that means you don't date them. You don't be with them because they're not healthy and they're not able to provide that. But most men are healthy and able to provide what it is that we need, but it's giving them the space and the okayness to still be free and still be men and still be able to show up for us.
Yeah, totally, Jen. That's so important. And I think too, like that's been a real key lesson for me is to allow men to be men, you know, and understanding that there is that receptive mode that women are. But receptive doesn't mean passive. Okay. That's really, really important. You know, there's a big difference. You can still be a very powerful woman and be in a receptive state rather than,
Yeah.
you know, being submissive. There's a really, really big difference. So you can still be in your power. You can still be strong in yourself and in your femininity. But allowing men to be that strong male, like that's awesome. It's really great. And there's something that, you know, Jen had mentioned that there's certain people, like key people that trigger you so much in your life. And I actually believe that they're the ones you have soul contracts with, you know, because they, like they're the guy that I was like, oh, about this weekend, like I was talking to a woman who pulled my Akashic records, which are really cool for you to check out if you're interested. It's basically like a library of all the lifetimes of every lifetime you've had is in this library, and certain people are gifted and they can access those Akashic records. So I mentioned him and she's like, yeah, I see that you guys have been going at it for lifetimes, like this power struggle, you know, he's superior, you're inferior, or the other life was the other way around, whatever. And I was like, I am so effing over this. I do not want another lifetime of this. I cannot even handle it. I'm like, come on, let's do this. Like, let's just figure it out. Like I refuse. I want to break this spell, like, you know, or this circle, you know, and that's not how the new energy is. You know, the new energy is not about power over or power under people. It's about together, you know, power within and power with each other. So, yeah, but I believe that there's definitely people, you know, where you're like, I can't get them out of my mind. Like, I can't get over them. Like, I don't understand what's going on. Well, chances are you had a soul contract with them and that you had a lesson for both of you to get, or multiple lessons. And a soul contract does not mean a soulmate. It just means that there's something that you guys agreed to before you came here to teach each other.
Yeah, I agree too. I totally, especially because for the most part is when you're learning these lessons with these soul contracts and these people, there are so many synchronicities and serendipitous moments around it all that you cannot mistake. Like the universe is totally in it, totally guiding it. And so anyway, when you're awake and you're aware of the synchronicities and of the serendipitous moments that the universe is showing you, then you can be open to receiving what the message is. And I think that that's been the growth for me, coming from where I was 3 years ago to where I am today, is like tremendous spiritual growth and tremendous emotional intelligence growth. And so coming to this place, I'm able to see this serendipitous and synchronistic things happening. Whereas before I couldn't see that. All I could see was that this person made me so mad because he didn't want me. And that was like my biggest trigger, is not being wanted. It comes from, I don't even know, like I could have brought this in from a previous lifetime. Or whenever you're kids, I mean, you don't understand what parents are doing and why they're making decisions that they make. They don't explain it to you. Your brain is not developed enough to understand it. The wisdom is not there. And so you make up stories in your head. Okay, my dad did this, so that must mean. And that's what I did. You know, my dad did this, so that must mean he doesn't want me. And I mean, my dad is a great dad. So it's like this stuff was just made up in my head when I was, you know, 2, 3, 4 years old. And then I'm like 43 carrying this stuff like it's running the show. I mean, not anymore, but it's running the show, or it was running the show. That 4-year-old little girl that wasn't wanted and felt it. And then that's what I need to heal, that little girl, to say you are wanted, you are safe, and the right person will want you in the right way someday, you know? And I think that that's the healing that we all have to go through.
Oh, 100%. It absolutely is. And we're all in it. So, you know, I love that. And the other thing that I was thinking about, Jen, about being clear, and we talked about this earlier today on our call about saying we don't want a relationship and we do, you know?
Yeah.
Newsflash, ladies, guys know when you want to be in a relationship, you know, even when we're acting like we're totally cool and we're so nonchalant. I think I mentioned that on another episode, that they can feel the energy, you know? And so I don't know how many of you guys do this, ladies, but I know for me, when I'm sitting down with a guy, I'm like assessing, what kind of husband would he be? What kind of father would he be? What kind of relationship would we have? What kind of life would we have? You know, like I am like completely analyzing based on how he treats people, how he's treating me, what he eats, how he says things, how he expresses himself, like, you know, all this stuff. Like I'm processing. And it's like, can we just enjoy this meal? Can we just enjoy this experience? And then maybe there'll be another experience, you know, but like, you know, because who I was 3 years ago is completely different than who I am now. I can call up one of my old boyfriends who I dated twice in the span of 5 years, and he can definitely tell you that who I was at this point, two completely different women, you know. So for me to like make a judgment call on a lifetime partner during like one meal or a phone conversation, you know, it's like we project, you know, we're like, oh man, maybe da 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 da. And guys can feel that. they can. And because I don't know about you, I was telling Jen, I was like, when I'm sitting down with a guy and he's saying like, yeah, you know, I'm looking to settle down and stuff. And I'm like, what? Like, I don't want to talk to you. Like, you know, so of course they're going to think that about us. You know?
If a guy is like overkill reaching out, we're freaking out. We're going like, and then we do it and we're like, why doesn't he show up for me? It's like, oh my God. It's like does my head in. But it's true, Jess. I mean, so many women do this. We like project and like put our future together with this person, and we're like, shit, I don't even know this guy. Like, what if I don't even like him after a year, you know? But that's the thing with relationships and with going on the road, is that you just take the risk, and it's about taking the risk. And it's funny because I got this this quote today. I want to read it to you guys because it was such a good quote. It was really resonating with me. It's from George Harrison. It says, "It is being here now that is important. There's no past, there's no future. Time is a very misleading thing. All there is ever is the now. We can gain experience from the past, but we cannot relive it. We can hope for the future, but we do not know if there is one." And it's really like, I think that this is the biggest lesson in all of this, is living in a present moment, not projecting, not going, okay, like I'm going to make up a relationship in my head about this person and this is how it's going to be with the life events and all this shit. Like, it's literally live in the present moment. Do you align today? Yep, I align today. Go to tomorrow. Do we align today? You know, like you go with your continuous alignment. As long as you're continuing to align, then it's good. And when you don't align anymore, you figure out why you're not aligning. And if it's time to split and go your separate ways, then the lessons are learned and you do. And if not, then you keep going, you know, you figure it out. So anyway.
I love that quote, Jen. That is such a good quote. I feel like I'll see if I can do some little techie thing to put that in there somewhere so that we can see it. Other people can see it again. Yeah. Super, super good. I love that. Yeah, so fantastic quote. And you're right. Like, and we talk about living in the moment, be present, blah, 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 blah. But, you know, there is a lot of truth to that, because when we can not be attached, You know, and we can express ourselves without an attachment of how we want a response. If we can, yeah, you know, if we can show up and be in the moment and not be attached to what's going to happen tomorrow, you know, and I had that really a really beautiful lesson with that myself, and then I was able to do that with someone else. Like I had a really lovely day with this guy, and I was like, can we just have this experience be what it is, you know? Because if we're trying to say like, oh well, what's next, you know, that, you know, no, what's right now, what can we do right now? Not to say that you do something stupid, you guys, like we've all done that too, you know, where we kind of make some decisions, we're like, oh, maybe that wasn't the best idea to do, but you know, being in the moment. So being aware and having boundaries, you know, kind of setting yourself up for what you want for yourself and the experience. But yeah, just being in it for what it is and accepting it for what it is and showing up and leaving it in that moment, and then being able to appreciate the experience. And that's something that Jen and I have talked about too, is like not being attached to the person that was in the experience. Thinking that thinking that like, okay, well, this person created this experience, so if I have this person, I'll have more of these experiences. That's not actually the case. The case is you had this really beautiful experience that you created, that you brought in, that you attracted, that you had, that you, it was all created for you, by you, and you experienced it. And that person just happened to hold that place to allow that experience to happen. Does
Yeah,
that make sense?
it does. Absolutely. And that's such a beautiful lesson in it as well, because when we lose sight of that, then that's when we start to project. And that's whenever we start to create or try to create, like the manipulation sets in and the hurt feelings set in and it's, you know, all this stuff sets in when you do that, because you form an attachment now to an outcome. It's because you want more of those experiences. Yeah, I want more of these experiences. And does it necessarily have to be with the person? No. Like Jess said, it's about creating your ideal life and experiencing it through people. And whether that's the same person, you know, some people do connect and they are in a relationship for a very long period of time. And so they are responsible for creating their own reality within that relationship. But if, you know, until you're there to that point where something is evolving to that place, then it's about experience after experience, and it's about relishing the now moment and being in total gratitude for it. Like Jess said, she had the most amazing day with this one guy, and it's like all about the gratitude and just being so grateful for experiencing that together, whether their souls are meant to be together for anything more or if it was just that one experience. So, and I think that's where we lose sight. Like I know I lost sight of that in my own situation that I experienced. Is I had a great experience and then I lost sight of like it being just that and nothing more for the time being. And so anyway, I lost sight of the gratitude of it, and I formed an attachment, and then I wanted this, and then I'm like, and I'm not getting it, and da 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 da, you know, and then I'm spiraling out of control. And it's like, no, let's bring it back to what it really is. It was an amazing moment, and that's what it was for it then. And yeah, go on.
I love that. Yeah, having the gratitude. And Jen thankfully remembered that, or realized, I came to that realization within a day. It
Yeah.
took me about 4 years. It took me 4 years to get that day wasn't necessarily about who I was with. It was about the experience and who happened to show up and be in that place. Because I could have had, I've had other incredible days. It just happened to be one of the best days of my life. And then I thought that guy was going to be the one that would continuously bring about more best days of my life. So it took me about 4 years to figure that out and be like, oh, let's just cut that up. Let's just let him free so that he doesn't think that, that I have that attachment. So good for you.
It is.
So
I mean, I'm not going to lie. It's hard to let go of that because you do want more experiences like that. You want more moments like that because they're so juicy and they're so fulfilling and they feel so good to you. So yeah, your soul is like, I want more of that. But then putting it into perspective is the most important thing. Like you said, I mean, it was the experience. It was about the experience because ultimately the experience expands the soul. It expands the awareness. It expands who you are as a person. So being open to having the experiences. And so for me, I was always afraid to be open to the experiences because I was afraid of getting hurt, because I was afraid that I would have this amazing experience and then it wouldn't be anymore and I wouldn't have it again, you know? And it's really about that moment that expands you, and then you go about creating more moments, and then eventually you will find someone. If your purpose and your desire is to be in relationship, you will find someone that is on the same playing field as you are, and you're playing together, and you're experiencing this journey together, because there's so much to experience as a couple. And I know for myself, like, I do eventually want that, because there's so much that I do want to experience. But, right now it's living in the moment, and it's accepting myself, who I am, where I'm at right now.
Yeah, and also being honest. Like, there's nothing wrong with Jen wanting to be in a relationship, and that's why I said today, like, that's beautiful that Jen wants to have this really incredible soul, expanding, incredible relationship, and she deserves that. She deserves to have that. And the guy that was in this situation, that's not what he wants. So while Jen was being a little bit more like, oh, laissez-faire, nonchalant, no big deal, secretly, I mean, internally, that is what she wants. And so when she's able to express that, and then he can express what his desire is, and then they can come at it equally, upfront, honest. This is what I'm looking for. This is not what I'm looking for. Okay, cool. So now we know, going into this next situation, how we're going to show up, and how to be in that, and honor each other's desires, or not. But I just think that there's something so beautiful about that clarity. And that's something that I'm really, really working on, is very, very clear with people, but especially with guys. And there's no need to beat around the bush, ladies. There's absolutely no need, or to worry about feeling bad about something, about not telling the guy the absolute honest truth. I promise you, he wants radical honesty.
Yeah.
I promise.
Yeah.
And that actually leads into, like, one more thing I wanted to bring up, which was active rejection versus passive rejection. So I haven't read any of this before. This is just, maybe, I'm sure it exists somewhere. I haven't come across it, but here's what I feel. So an active rejection is saying, like, I don't see anything happening with us, or I'm not interested in you. Like, that's an active rejection. And yes, that hurts. It really hurts. No, I show me the person that loves being rejected. It does not exist. But to have someone be on the outskirts and kind of dodging, and I've done it, like, I don't want to hurt their feelings, so I'm going to passively reject them. I'm going to push them off. I'm going to lead them on. I'm going to say, like, oh, maybe next week, or maybe, whatever it is, that does not serve anybody. That doesn't serve you, and it does not serve that person. So I have two distinct experiences of that, of actively rejecting someone that had been in my past. And because I was able to be honest with him and saying, like, no, I don't see anything happening again with us, I was no longer an option. He always had me in the background as a potential option, because we always had this swirling chemistry. And so for me to say, no, I don't feel it, I don't see it happening, suddenly I'm not in the deck anymore. And he was able to make a different decision, and he's so happy. He chose another woman that is fantastic, and he was so happy, and he was able to make that decision. And then I'm thinking about the guy in my life who I wanted to beat the crap out of this weekend, and how he would not actively reject me. And so I would still have this thing hanging, like, oh, maybe he'll come around, or oh, maybe, like, in a few years, or maybe this, or whatever. Like, he'd give me just enough to keep me hooked. And that's so unhealthy. And I seeing the contrast, I'm like, I really want to be direct and honest. And that is such a huge revelation for me. So, Jen, I don't know if you have anything to share about that.
To you. I mean, the other thing with relationship and with not saying what you want is that the other person senses it anyway. They might not be able to put their finger on it, but they sense something is up. Because, like, when a woman wants a relationship with a man and he's not for that, then he is like, then the woman will start to do things that are manipulative. They'll say things, they'll do things, they'll be ways that try to get in there. And he can sense it, you guys. Men are far more intuitive than we're giving them credit for. And so they sense something's up. And that's why they run, and that's why they're not being like 100% direct, because first of all, they're not really sure, because they can't put their finger out. They just feel it energetically. And the other thing about that is, like, you know, ladies, if you're messing around with a guy that you know does not want a relationship, then you're going to get hurt. And that's just the bottom line. So you either have to come to a place where you're okay with what it is and allow it to be that, or you have to go in search or be open to a man who actively says, I want a relationship. Because there are men out there that do want a relationship from the very beginning. Like this guy that does my teeth, you know, he met his girl first time on Tinder, first date on Tinder, and that was it. But he was actively looking, and, you know, he was serious about it, and, you know, he stepped into that. And he claimed that. And so that's how it happens for men. Men don't mess around. When they're ready, they're ready. And the other thing is, like, if they're not ready, but you're dating, like, you cannot hound him about, are you, like, where's this going? What, you know, like, after 3 months, women want to know, where's this going? That's just kind of like the standard for women. And so sometimes he'll say something like, I care about you, or I like spending time with you. And then we interpret it as, oh, we didn't, you know, like, we're let down and all of this stuff. But in male terminology, that is, I really want to continue this and see where it goes. But we can't put pressure on them to say, right, you know, like from the first or second or third date, that they want a relationship with you and they want to spend the rest of their life with you. I mean, that's just stupid. Like, I mean, who does that? And we expect it from them all the time, and it's insane. And we can't be that way. We have to begin to manage our emotions in that and allow it to evolve the way it's supposed to. And, like, that's always been my problem, is, like, I want to know in the first, like, 2 or 3 dates, where's this going, you know? And it's like slow down, like, have a little patience and let it be what it's going to be, you know?
Yeah, 5 years, 10 years, 15, 32, you know, those are all considerable amounts of time. It's kind of hard to make that judgment call right out of the gate. But, and guys, I want to share something too with you, is if you tell your girlfriend that you're not interested in getting married, and Jen, maybe you can weigh in on this, but in my opinion, that is the ultimate challenge of a woman. The ultimate one. If he's like, oh, I don't really see myself getting married. Challenge is on. I'm going to prove, and I'm going to change you. I want you to marry me. Like, I for sure know that. And this one guy told me that, and I was like, well, you just opened the door to the biggest challenge. She's going to do whatever she can to change your mind, because who doesn't want to be the woman that changed the guy's mind, who said he was never going to get married, and then he meets me, or, you know, whatever, you know? So understand that too, that women will see that as a challenge, you know? But if you are really truly upfront and saying, like, look, like, I'm not changing my mind 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 2 years from now, like, this is how I feel, and give her the option, give her the space, you know, because there are women like us that we want to be in a relationship, you know, we do want to see that happen down the road. And then there's other women who don't. So I think it comes down to being really, really clear and being really honest and saying exactly what you mean. So going back to those 4 agreements.
Yeah, I know it is. It is saying what you need. And there's a process of figuring it out too. You know,
Yeah.
One of the things Tony Robbins talks about this. I went through a lot of Tony stuff, and his wife, Sage, you know, they were friends for a while first. And Tony tells a really funny story about how he and Sage got together, because he met her at an event, and then they were friends for a while. And this was during the time when Tony was single, and he got married pretty young. So he was having a good time and enjoying his single days. And he has a resort in Fiji. And so he would fly to Fiji, and then he would fly women down there and, like, rotate them every couple of weeks. And Tony was like, I'm not getting married again. And one of them did that. She was like, oh, I'm figuring out a way to get in this guy's world. I'm staying with Tony Robbins and all this stuff. And so anyway, he was like, this one lady refused to leave. And so he's trying to juggle all these women that are supposed to be coming there every 2 weeks. And Sage, he's like, finally like, Sage, can you come down and save me from all these women? You know, so he has Sage come in. And it's funny because, you know, she's describing her feelings about it. And she's like, I'm just watching Tony do this. And I know that I love him as a friend and I care about him as a person. And then, you know, what comes around is that he's getting rid of all these ladies on the island, and Sage is the only one left. And he looks over and she's crying a little bit, and he's like, "What's wrong?" And she was like, "I just really love you." And so that's like when they finally got together, because she finally was honest with how she felt in their relationship and in their friendship. So they had a developing thing going on. So I always find that funny, because women, like, they take that challenge to a T, and they want it. Now, I'm not normally like that. I'm like, if somebody says I don't want to be married, I'm like, okay, I'll go somewhere else, you know? But some women they're very challenged by that, and they want to prove that they can have that, you know? So.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, there's so many women and so many men that want all the same things that you do. So it's okay, you know, and I don't know. I feel like that there's a million, as perfect as whoever it is that you're with or who you strive for or who you dream about, there are millions more people like that are willing and are ready and have done the work and, you know, are willing to step up. Like I was like this weekend, like, drawing the line in the sand. I'm fucking stepping up to the line. Who's going to step up to? What man is going to step up to this line and do this shit with me? You know, like not being in the background, not being freaked out, not being on the wishy-washy. Oh, I don't know. No, she's worth it. I'm going to step up and I'm going to find a way and we're going to make it work. And that is what I'm like putting out there. I was so, oh man, the power in it. I was like, I'm stepping up to the line because I'm doing the work and I want that guy to do the same for me. And I want him to show up fully just like I am. So it's cool. I can feel that feminine power rising, you know, but also being feminine. So
Yeah. I mean, it's really about identifying what your needs are and can that person meet your needs. And it's not a good or bad or thing to the other person if they can't meet your needs, but really knowing what they are, you know? I mean, I know that I want to have a relationship and I want to create magic and travel and, you know, do the things that I'm here to do and dream of doing with my significant other. And so, you know, for me, it's like, I've got to be honest with myself. What is it that I really want? And sometimes it's a process of figuring that out. Sometimes you do date people to figure out what are your needs and what does it look like to have them fulfilled, you know? And so there's nothing wrong with doing that process, but then there's also this space where you really got to honor yourself. If relationship is what you're after eventually, then honor yourself in that. And, you know, if a man says, I don't want a relationship, then he doesn't want a relationship. So honor that as well.
yeah. And like we've said before, at the end of the day, you're in control of your happiness. You're the only one responsible for it. And having your needs met, like you need to be able to meet them. You know, obviously there's some things that men can provide and the other person in your relationship, but putting that burden on them isn't fair. You know what you need to feel healthy. You know what you need to thrive. You know what you need to be happy and do those things. I promise you that's very, very attractive to a guy when you're like, I got my shit together. I know who to go to. I've got my tribe. I've got, this whole cool thing going on. If you want to dance with me, awesome. Like, let's do it. It's a very empowering thing, I think. So
Yeah,
do you have anything else to add, Jen?
Well, I like that. Dance with you in the light and you know. And I think that that's really the ultimate thing with relationship. Is really about the juiciness of it, the what it brings to your life, the fullness, the intimacy, the dance, the travel. Like for me, like some people don't want to travel. I want to travel. I want to go to Thailand and Asia and Europe and all of that stuff I want to explore, so there's things that a relationship brings to the table. And so, yeah, being honest with that within yourself is the key. And like you said, is your happiness comes from within yourself. It's not on the other person. And the more that you can see that and realize that, then the less you're going to burden any other person. And they're going to not feel that burden. You know, they're going to know, wow, my lady is whole. She's happy within herself. She doesn't need me to provide that for her. So then he can step in and provide what he's really there to provide. And that is like the masculine energy. You know, he's not there to make you happy. He's there to provide the masculine energy, the exchange, the dance between male and female. And we're talking masculine energy and feminine energy. I mean, this could be in same-sex couples as well, because there's that energy in all of us. It's just dominant it's just more dominant in some people. So.
Yeah. And of course, you know, we all carry both energies. All of us carry both feminine and masculine, and it is important to develop our own inner masculine as ladies and the inner feminine as men. It's important to cultivate those as well, because then you come from a much more whole standpoint in life, and that's something that I'm learning about too. So I've loved this conversation. This has been so fun.
Too, man. Like an hour and a half on this one. So if you like this conversation, please like this video. And if you have a lady or a friend in your life that needs to hear this conversation, please share it. It means a lot to us. And please like and subscribe to our channel for more stuff that's going to be coming through each and every week from the Sexy Mystics.
Yeah, and if you want to write us, you can write us at thesexymystics@gmail.com. And I wanted to just give a quick rundown of the resources we mentioned this episode. So the Warrior Goddess training program, that was from Heather Ashamara. She's amazing. The 4 Agreements, that's from Don Miguel Ruiz. The Queen's Code, which was from Allison Armstrong. We talked about Tony Robbins. We talked about Dr. Phil Myers, who's based in St. Louis, Missouri. He's amazing. And my Rolfer, Dr. Roosvelt Rojas, he's incredible too. Is there anybody else that we mentioned? I'm trying to think.
No, I can't think of any other resources.
No, I think we did. So we'll make sure to post that quote that Jen said. We'll post that in our description too on our page. So thank you guys so much. I've totally loved this, and hope to see you all soon.
Thanks.
Yeah.